Chris Mackowski of Emerging Civil War behind the camera, and in front of the camera are my friends Jonathan Noyalas and Brandy Noyalas. Thanks for taking a second to sit down with us.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, you've written a book together, and I'm kind of trying to wrap my head around that, because that could be like a marriage-ending sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
So tell us about this project.
Yeah. So, you're right. Actually, one of the things that people have said when we, have said we worked on a book together, like, you're still married. But my wife and I have a special relationship. So, for years, the Civil War Institute runs a one-day, really it's a half-a-day kids camp out of Cool Spring. And my wife helps me. So my wife is a 6th grade social studies teacher. And every time we ride home after the camp, she's like, we don't have a book to put into their hands. And I said, well, that's kind of not my specialty. I write for, adults, but you're a 6th grade teacher. And so I had tasked her with putting together a book. We would collaborate together on this book for young learners, kind of using what she does in the classroom. I think my wife has a really innovative way of making history accessible to her students, and you really see that in this book.
So, Brandy, what was it like to sit down and start cracking out some words?
Well, I mean, I obviously started with Jonathan's book on the Battle of Cool Spring as my guide, and I went through and I just kind of used all of the learning strategies that we learned that I use with my kids, and literary strategies to help them make sense of the information, make it really interactive. Kids, young kids, middle learners today are used to smartphones and video games, and everything's really interactive for them. So making the history interactive, where they read information and then they make meaning out of it, was part of the goal for the book. And it was an interesting, challenging experience. Once I had done all of my end of the deal, I'm just like, you take it and do with it. We're very
Yeah, but one of the cool things about the book, right, is so like when we write books, it's beginning to end, and there's no moments of really pause and reflection. But one of the things that Brandy came up with are these pause points, where basically gives students an opportunity to kind of sit, reflect, think. There's like workbook elements to this as well. So it really is, it's not just a book that you read, it's a book that you interact with. And I think that's one of the reasons you've been so successful.
And trying to force kids as they read it to make connections between what was happening then and how it's still relatable today, how it relates to the real world today. Taking some of those big lessons of history.
Now, I'm sure there are some people who are like, 6th grade social studies, oh my gosh. But I discovered that people who teach middle school love teaching middle school. Mm-hmm. What do you like about it?
It is something new every day. There is definitely a lot of energy. And I feel like at this age, I'm dealing with 11, 12-year-olds. It's really a moment that I can capture them and make them love history. It's their first real exposure to a real history class, that's not also taught by their reading teacher or the math teacher. It's a real separate content, and a lot of kids are able to be really successful in it. Because it doesn't build on like I tell my kids, everything you need to know this year, you're going to learn this year. So if you didn't like history before, that's okay. If it's not like math class where if you don't remember your math facts, you're in trouble. When we reduce fractions, it's relatable to them. And my real goal is to get them interested and excited. And kids this age are full of energy, but they also they are craving information. And they're not shy about asking, if they have questions, and 500 of them in the middle of class. It's all good.
Those make, I think, for the best discussion. If they're the ones who are engaged enough to ask questions, then something's clicking, right?
Yes, yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you've got a copy of the book right there in front of you. Maybe you can hold that up for us here. And Brandy, if people want to get a hold of that, how do they do that?
It is available on Amazon. It is
there's other. So Amazon is easiest. Winchester Book Gallery, Harpers Ferry National Park Bookstore carries it. Civil War and More in Mechanicsburg sells it. I believe that Army Heritage Education Center in Carlisle also has it now. So there are multiple places in Virginia, West Virginia, and Pennsylvania But of course, Amazon is, or you can come to a Civil War Institute event and Brandy will sign a copy for you.
And all the money goes back to the Institute.
Yes.
So it is 100% charitable.
Yep.
That's the good thing about having a teacher do it. I don't
That's right.
expect, I
You
don't
don't
expect to be
expect to be
compensated.
paid.
for
You're already
anything.
not making any money.
That's right. That's right. It's just
What is it about like your experience from teaching in the classroom that you were able to bring into the book, especially that anything particular?
a lot of the trying to hammer home getting kids to understand the big ideas, getting them to understand the vocabulary and making it and explaining it in a way that's relatable to them. So at the very beginning of the book, I kind of set up the Civil War as a fight between, in the family, and kids can relate to fighting with siblings. They can relate to, maybe not liking parents' rules. And if I run away from home, I don't have to, I can get away from those rules, and just trying to relate it to their lives so that they can make more meaning from it and visualize what's happening on their level, trying to create that connection, and then from there build in the nuances of the battle and the history.
Cool. And Jonathan, I know this is really important for you, and what you guys are doing at Cool Spring is you've got this living laboratory of a battlefield, and just finding new ways for people to interact with this great resource.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we are constantly. I feel like we're blessed. There's not a lot of Civil War Institutes that actually own a battlefield, and you can go and have an opportunity to work with students. But at Cool Spring, we are constantly looking for ways to deepen our own understanding, right? So that we can then come up with new programs for the public. It's a site I'd like people to come back to. So we're always trying to kind of reinvent ourselves a little bit. And, it's so important to cultivate that interest in the next generation of historians, because Chris, we're not getting any younger. We will get old and senile and die. And so we need to have, a new generation of historians out there. And, I remember for me as a kid, what it was that excited me, visiting Gettysburg as a young boy, interested to me, that got me hooked. And it's interesting to me to see the pure joy and excitement on the faces of the kids who come out there in the summer for our kids camp, and, when you open up a display case and let them hold an amputation saw from the Civil War or an artillery shell. There was one kid a couple years ago, I made them put on archival gloves, and this kid was just obsessed with the gloves. He asked if he could have them, like, sure. But he said, this is the greatest day of my life. And so, I think about that student was maybe 8 or 9 years old. I'd like to think that has a transformative impact. And so the battlefield, what we do, the programmings, this book, I'm hoping it's not just going to inform, but sort of have that transformative impact and help cultivate, the next generation of historians.
Awesome. The book is called A Civil War Journey at Cool Spring, A History for Young Learners. Jonathan, Brandy, thank you so much for taking some time to talk with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.